Vulcan Forge is a blockchain-based game studio, and Peer is their play-to-earn gaming module. So with me to explain more about how all this works, and especially the new kind of play-to-earn gaming concept, which is really interesting, as the CEO, Jamie Thompson. Jamie, great to see you.
Thank you very much for having me. Lovely to be here.
Let's just start with introduce yourself, introduce the company as well.
Sure. So Vulcan Forge is a game studio. We're one of the few companies that kind of made the direction from gaming into blockchain, whereas a lot of blockchain companies are now moving into gaming with this whole metaverse and play to earn hype. We're one of the we went the other way around really. So we started as a gaming studio first, and we moved into blockchain after when we sort of realized how incredible the idea of owning your own assets and these play-to-earn models could be. There's 45 of us in the studio altogether, 15 of us in-house here in Greece, and everyone else around the world. You know, due to the corona epidemic, it's a bit harder to get everyone in one place at the moment.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how we've all globally adapted to this. Explain the metaverse a little bit. Of course, we know Facebook has changed their name to Meta Platforms. We've been hearing more about this. Explain what it is, how we all be interacting with the metaverse.
Sure, yeah. Well, it's funny because the term metaverse was actually coined in 1990 science fiction novels. I think it was John Hall in Snow Crash or something like that. It just meant a futuristic world. It just so happens that now it's been coined by a lot of blockchain game studio and companies of this idea of a virtual world where you own things. So the word metaverse itself is it's not new to the world. But yeah, so I say metaverse is really sort of a futuristic virtual world. Now, how we've defined it is basically owning your own assets within a virtual landscape. This whole NFT boom and blockchain, we've seen the power of blockchain in that you can own a sword or you can own a horse or a wolf or anything. And that allows you to have a sort of a self-sustaining economy within these games, as opposed to just some centralized game you play for fun. Now you've got some real world meaning behind your actions within it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and some of the amazing things is like I saw a piece of virtual real estate sold for like $1.3 million. I mean, I think a lot of people just can't get their head around that. They're like, why would somebody buy virtual real estate? But is it expectation that'll go up in value? Is it just to be part of the metaverse? I mean, why do we own things in the metaverse?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of three things, really. I mean, first of all, you have to remember that these payments aren't made from credit cards. They're usually made from sort of currencies, cryptocurrencies that people have been storing on these exchanges for a long time. So people don't usually think in dollars as much when they make these transactions. Second of all, it is about ownership. I mean, blockchain, without doubt, cannot take ownership of an asset from you. So it is like, owning a car in your name or a house in your name, not legally binding, but technologically binding to you. So yes, there is that element of ownership. And of course, rarity. If you know, I mean, in our game, Vulcanverse, for example, there are only 10,000 plots of land. There only ever will be 10,000 plots of land. So if you own one of those plots, that's it. You're 1 in 10,000. So value sort of drives with it. And of course, there's speculation from some traders, of course.
Yeah. No, it's a really interesting kind of economy. Describe the game to me, Vulcanverse.
Sure. Well, Vulcanverse is one of 9 games we've got. Vulcanverse is probably our most advanced game. We were actually the first metaverse to be functional in the whole blockchain space. It's sort of a Greco-Roman mythology, based with the Zeus and all the gods and goddesses of the Olympians and Titans. So there are 10,000 plots of land and actually the map's behind me. You've got the underworld of Hades, of the grasslands of Acadia, Boreas, and Notus, the deserts. So you own this plot of land, and with it, you can sculpt and terramorph it however you want. So of course you own it like you do in blockchain, but we've added an extra layer on that, and that you can shape and grow it into however you like. And of course we've added quests and gameplay and all this kind of stuff within it. But again, unlike other games, everything you own and everything you do is recorded forever and permanently on the blockchain. So it's just the actions you're doing within the game transfers to your real life. If you level up a game and you manage to earn some money in the game, that's real. And it's it's fascinating because it's just you're creating like a petri dish of civilization within it.
Well, I'm really interested in that time period, like the Greco-Roman period. So it's kind of, I should try it out and see if it might be something I'd like.
Absolutely.
I mean, do you think this is competition for traditional games? Can they work together? Will we all kind of evolve over to blockchain-based gaming? How do you see the future?
It's a good question. Honestly, if I'm being objective and honest about it, I don't think play-to-earn gaming right now is a threat to mainstream gaming. Mainstream gaming is a $250 billion industry. Crypto gaming, blockchain gaming, whatever you want to say, is tiny in comparison. Gamers are still going to pay to play games. They're still going to pay subscriptions for the better games. This was a circle we had trouble squaring when we entered the industry. It was very easy to think, well, let's just combine good games with the blockchain industry and two big markets to make a third bigger market. Well, what we found was that gamers actually didn't really warm to the idea of NFTs and ownerships yet so much. They didn't care about that. So they just wanted good games. Whereas those in cryptocurrency and blockchain, all they cared about really was making money. So the quality of the game didn't really make a difference to them. They just happened just clicking away on some 2D sprites and making cash. So it was hard for us for a while to work out, well, who are we competing with and who's our market? But then what we realized is, as our users and our community owned these assets and owned, their wolf or their tiger or their axe or their god in the world, they didn't mind so much about how good the game was. I mean, in fact, we were building the world around them, but they had this sort of affection towards what they owned. So they just felt when they woke up and they had their tiger in this world, it didn't matter if it was stuck under grass with like hair floating off in the air and it wasn't developed yet, because they owned it. They knew they had it. And I think that's the new vehicle coming out of this. It's an economy within a virtual world, real life economy with a virtual world, and how you create that virtual world or how fantastical you make it, like we've done with Greco-Roman mythology, others done aliens or whatever, is up to the creators. But yeah, that's the third movement coming out of all this, really.
Yeah, interesting. So it sounds like the appeal is a little different with this type of gaming rather than a normal gaming. Now, what has the play to earn work? How do you even get started in something like that?
Well, play to earn, as you have these sort of tokens on the blockchain, which have real world value when you convert them to dollars or pound sterling, whatever, you can obviously offer incentives within the games. So we saw it with Axie Infinity, where people were, I think in the Philippines, they were earning a lot of money just by clicking and playing and farming these tokens and selling them. So that was the first real time that the whole world woke up to this whole play to earn mechanism. Now, 1-2 years later, companies, obviously like ourselves and Vulcanverse, Vulcan Forge, we're kind of sort of fine-tuning the play-to-earn model a little bit more, in that play-to-earn and its basics is very unsustainable. You can't just pay out money and expect it not to inflate. So the idea now is that game companies are using this model of play to earn to reinvest. So we can use very gamified techniques you can reward the player with tokens, but make sure they have a reason to reinvest it in the game to upgrade themselves. And so that stops these inflationary measures that other tokens have seen. And so it just gamifies, it makes the whole thing very real. It gamifies everything to a level where your real life does depend on what you do in the game. And it's exciting.
Yeah, so what does excite you about this industry and where it's going?
Yes, I think, do you know what? I think it's the philosophical perspective of it all, what we're seeing now. Because as I said, as you sort of introduce this real economy within these virtual worlds, you're seeing hierarchies, class systems, tiers play out as you would if you just created an island and put 10,000 people on there with assets that had value and meant something, and see what would happen. So for us, every day we're seeing new things appear. I mean, little cliques, little guilds, competition between different sort of genres of people divide themselves by how much they own and what they've done, and everything's just far more real. And some could say this could be a dangerous sort of progression, because we're taking the idea of this fun virtual reality environment outside of the real world, and we're sort of combining the two. It's a very, very thin line now between what's real and what isn't, as it's affecting a real life. So it's exciting, maybe a little bit scary, but it's certainly the beginning of something new.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's kind of hard to get your head around it. Exactly, but it is exciting to watch. And I like the fact that people all over the world can play, and some people are actually seeing some financial benefit from it, that in some poor countries and things. So Jamie, fascinating. Thank you so much for coming and explaining all this.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks.